time. And so this is a great tool for educators who want their students to manipulate the information on the slide or in the sheet or on the form simultaneously, to give responses or to show their creative thinking or what have you, move graphics around. So this Wild Learning Lab site will give people some tips for getting started, including ideally that when you're using this, you use a Gmail account. You can do it without a Gmail account, but it might be more challenging. And if you're working with students, if they're in Google Classroom or if they're all using Gmail accounts or Gmail enabled accounts that some school districts provide, then you can also see their names when they manipulate content, and it makes it easier to monitor who's being naughty and nice. There's ways around that if you can't, if that's an issue, and that is the educator can share their screen and just interact verbally or through the chat, and the learners can tell the educator what to do to the content, how to reply to questions, etc. Or the educator might pick a few leaders from groups that maybe are more trusted, right? But this is one of the challenging things with Google Apps. Okay, so today we're doing Bat Blitz. So I'm going to click on the Bat Blitz button here. And this activity is hot off the press thanks to our good friends at the Kansas Association for Conservation and Environmental Education who worked on this. So we have the overview here, upper elementary and middle school students as our suggested grades. This version will be an indoor activity, all online, okay? And you're gonna need over an hour typically to do this. We're gonna do a condensed version. Detailed instructions are here on this blue document, which can be popped out here, right? And I can link this to you, which I'll put in the chat now. You don't need to open this. You can if you want to, or you can copy it and paste it for later. Let me check my sharing permissions here. And if you're not familiar with the sharing, you should look at the shared screen. Let me make sure I'm sharing this screen now. Yeah, okay. And so up at the top right, push the share button, and these are the people who already have access. I can change this to anyone with this link can view it, which is what I need now for this. I don't need you all to edit this document. I just need you to be able to view it. Now that you can view it, if you want to copy it and make your own copy and then make changes to it, you could, but you'd have to, save it, change the name and save it. But you're not going to alter my version. In fact, when you're working with these online Project Wild activities, I recommend that you start off by making your own copies, saving them in a Google Drive, and you make your own master copy. And then when you work with facilitators or with educators who are then working with other kinds of learners, right? Teachers and students, you can share to them yet another copy with another name to use on that day because they might manipulate the content. And when you do that, if you want them to manipulate the content, well, then you can change the link from viewer to editor, so everybody can edit it. Okay, but sometimes they don't need to edit it. Sometimes they just need to view it. Okay, the new Project Wild Learning Lab website will have guidelines, a tutorial on this using Google Docs and Google Slides, Google Apps, as we call them. All right. So those more detailed instructions are intended to parallel the instructions in the book. They don't replace the instructions in the book. They supplement them. They adapt them. But really, the book has all of the background information that makes it complete. Okay, so scrolling a bit further down, and let me double check my slide sharing here, make sure we're on the same page. Yep, okay. So we have we're going to be using this Google slide presentation, which I just popped out from the website window. And give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Okay. All right. And if there's any background noise, I'm in close proximity to my wife who's also working, so sorry about that. All right, so let's get started here. We're gonna, instead of doing the breakout groups that is an option for this activity, we're gonna do it as a, try it as a single group. And I see we have some chat coming in. Let me pause and take a look there. I'm reading the comments on the difficulty, Lori, that you mentioned on you can't use Google Sites, I'm guessing, at your website. Is that right? Google Sites in particular?
I have the Wild About Turkey stuff that's all ready to go and it's on Google Sites, but our Fish and Game website we have to use it as a different platform. We can't use Google. I thought it was because .gov, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Idaho Forest Products Commission is doing our other workshop because they're double.
Okay. Do you know if you're allowed to use Moodle?
Noodle?
Moodle, M-O-O-D-L-E. It's a paid service, and it's a learning management system where a lot of school districts subscribe to it.
Okay. Well, I think we have a platform, but it's not. Okay. Google Sites is clunky. I think this one's going to be really clunky, but
we're developing content in Moodle, and so that's why I asked, because that might be a possibility. We could partner up and maybe work something out, but we can talk more about that later. Okay. All right. And then there was a comment from Brenda, Pocket Full of Primary is a great YouTube channel for learning about slides, etc. Okay, well, thank you for that, Brenda. All right. Also fantastic for posting on the Canvas learning platform. Okay, so let's get into this activity. Learners, what do you think bats eat? Use your microphone or your chat.
Blood, that's what the kids say. Blood.
Oh.
Is that true? Do bats consume blood? Anybody?
Some of them.
Okay.
Yes.
There is such thing as a vampire bat, right? And not in North America, but yes, they might bite the back of, say, a cow and drink a little bit of blood that comes out of the cow before flying away. Yeah. Okay, but very few bats. Maybe that's the only species. I'm not sure. What else do they eat?
3 species.
3 species? Okay.
Of vampire bats. I think that's right.
What else do they eat? Maggie, I see your lips moving, but you're muted.
Bugs.
Bugs, okay. Lots and lots of insects, right?
And in the chat box, it also says fruit, insects, nectar.
Okay. All right, and we can talk about where we think bats sleep. What are 2 places where bats might sleep?
A tree. In a cave.
Okay. All right. How do you think bats find their food?
Echolocation. Smelling it.
Why should we care about bats? Well, Lori, you're muted.
Because they're cute.
From the one bat lesson that I'd done before as part of a Project Wild class, they said that bats pollinate whatever plant is necessary for making, was it mojitos, Maggie?
Agave.
Yep.
So for selfish reasons, if we like mojitos, we should like bats.
Mark, you're muted.
Okay, pollinators. Yeah, so pollinators, helping control insect populations. These are very important ecosystem services that bats provide. So some background on little brown bats and white nose syndrome. Very common are little brown bats in the northern United States and Canada, but are scarce in the southern United States and absent in the southern Great Plains. They can also be found in high elevations in the forests of Mexico. They prefer to eat midges, mosquitoes, gnats, beetles, crane flies, moths, and mayflies. During the day, little brown bats typically roost in attics and human-made bat houses. In the winter, little brown bats hibernate in caves and mines. In North America, hibernating bat populations have declined significantly in recent years due to a disease known as white nose syndrome, which was first observed in New York in 2006. That is, the first time it was observed in North America and documented was in 2006. The major cause of death for bats with white nose syndrome is starvation. Some researchers have recorded 90 to 100% mortality of bats, mostly little brown bats, at winter roosts, their hibernicula, in the northeastern United States. Okay, well, there were some important details in this background section that might come in handy later on. So we're going to now do the little brown bat survival simulation. Now, one way we could do this is to divide into breakout groups, but we're going to do it as one group to answer 3 sets of questions about bats. Each set of question will represent a year of survival for your group's little brown bat population. Each year, the health of your bat population will decline as white nose syndrome becomes more prevalent. This will be represented by the questions getting increasingly more difficult. So the more difficult the questions, the harder it is for bats to survive due to white nose syndrome. Each question your group answers correctly represents a little brown bat that survived that year, and each question you answer incorrectly represents a little brown bat that did not survive that year. Groups will have 30 seconds to answer each question, which may be very challenging. We'll see. Please do not search for the answers on the internet during those 30 seconds, and believe me, you wouldn't have time. When the small groups have each completed the 3 sets of questions, they will each share their results with the whole group. And again, we're going to do it as one group. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you rather than learners as adult workshop participants. There's a slight difference there. And I'm going to show you something a little bit behind the scenes here, if I can get to it. Okay, so in the slide presentation, there's 3 slides for group 1, and they're all in pink. Okay, and then it goes, or 5 slides, and then it goes to the same 5 slides for group 2, and then the same 5 slides for group 3, right? And so you can use this in breakout rooms this way. And you can share to everyone or share to group leaders for each breakout room the link to this slide presentation, okay? Which actually I'll do now. And if nothing else, we should make sure you're able to access it. Okay, so see if you can open that up in a separate window, and you won't need to use it, but it will help me to make sure you can access it. Okay, so I'm seeing a head nod. And I pasted the URL in the chat. Okay, yeah, all right. So I'll be the one, I'm on step 1 here. And let me double check my shared screen. Yep, okay. So step 1 for our group is that one person will need to share their screen, that'll be me, and I will click on questions or that look like little padlocks, and those will give us questions to try to answer. I'll read the question out loud, and then I'll record our answers. And once we think we have our answer, we can type it in and see if we're correct. We'll have one person designated as a timekeeper, and that'll be easy to do because you should be able to see the clock counting down, but when it stops, you can turn off your microphone and yell stop. Lori, would you be the timekeeper? It means that you'll have to, after 30 seconds, just tell us that our time's over. But don't worry, I haven't started the time yet, and when I do, you'll be able to see the timer. It'll be easy enough. Okay. So third step, you can try to answer each question as many times as possible during the 30 seconds. Some questions will have a hint that you can click on. To see that hint, we'll click on the light bulb icon and a link will appear. We'll copy and paste it into our internet browser to help us figure out the correct answer. Our group will record how many little brown bats from our population survived. That is the number of questions we got correctly, and the number that did not survive, the number of questions answered incorrectly. We won't get to all the questions, but just the ones we answered incorrectly will indicate those bats that did not survive. All right, here we go. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to start the timer in a moment, but first let's take a look at these more specific instructions for the first year. We're in year 1. Our bat population is healthy, and this will be represented by questions that are not too difficult. To represent a healthy bat population having the ability to survive with relative ease, answering these questions will be relatively easy this first year. In a moment, I'll click on this link to the simulation and we'll begin answering the questions. And then there's a reminder, don't forget to click on the timer, which we'll do in a moment. And then we'll record in this table directly into this Google slide how many survived and how many didn't. Okay, so get ready because once I click, you might want to turn off your microphone because I'm not going to have time to read the chat. Okay, here we go. Oh, sorry, I forgot to open the simulation link. Okay, so this takes me to an app in Flippity, right? And by the way, you can customize these questions, change them up, and there's instructions on that first blue document we looked at and how to do that. And all the links are there in the web page too. So here we go, the first. Okay, so let me separate this out over here. Hold on, I'm going to need to open up 2 windows, make them visible simultaneously. Okay, now let me reshare my screen. So instead of sharing the presentation, I'm going to share the whole screen. And give me a thumbs up if you can see both the slide presentation as well as the Flippity. All right. Okay, so I'm going to push the timer and Lori's going to watch it for us and yell stop when the time's up. And we're going to start on question 1. Get ready to answer. Here we go. Question 1. What are the only mammals capable of true flight? Anybody?
Bat.
Okay, oops, not bags. Oh, mistype. Okay, correct, I can move on. Question 2, true or false, bats specialize in eating insects, fruit, fish, small animals, nectar, pollen, and blood.
True.
True.
Question 3. Oh, okay.
Oh.
See, no. I'm thinking we might need to make the timer go longer. We'll have time to go back and look at the other questions, but the next question was going to be, most bats are considered crepuscular, active at dusk and dawn. Bats are also active during the nighttime. What is being active at nighttime called?
Nocturnal.
Nocturnal. All right. So
Mark, is the goal to get through all 7 or 8 of those questions?
the goal is to get as far as you can. It's
Okay.
just that general. The
Yep,
number
okay.
of bats that survived for us is 2. So, oops, backing up here. Nope, a second, let me do it. So when I click on my slide presentation, of course, it advances the screen. So what I need to do is get out of presenter mode. But this is going to be a little tricky, so bear with me. I'm going to need to go to this link and copy link address, open it in a new window. Okay.
Just so you know, Mark, your flipping
Yes.
back and forth is making me think that I can't do this on my own.
So a few comments there. A co-facilitator, especially when you're using Zoom,
Yeah.
co-host, but also a co-facilitator can be really helpful to where you can swap back and forth screen sharing. And also having more than one screen is so helpful. And what's also really helpful is practice. So rechecking my shared screen. Yes, okay, we're good. All right, now I can push escape and get out of presentation mode, I think. Hold on, I'm going to mute myself for a second. Well, I've never had this difficulty before of escaping out of the presentation mode and it may be, I'm not sure, it may be that it's in view only mode, but I don't think that's it. And so that's what's preventing me from, something's preventing me from being able to edit the document, and that might be it. So I'm going to have to check on that. Yes.
If you click the little gear and then hit editor, where it's like the bottom option, it let me bring it up in the editor view. Open editor.
Hey, Mark, you're muted.
My comment was that these online sessions always involve a lot of learning how to use the technology, whether it's you, the presenter, or you're helping the learners learn it, or you're all learning it together. But so keep that in mind. So we really had 2 bats survive. I'm saying 3. We didn't answer any questions incorrectly. So, I'm going to leave that as blank. I'll say 0, but okay, we're going to move on to year 2. And here we go again, 30 seconds. Let me shrink this down. And okay, so now I'm going to go to my flippity here. And then I'm going to click on that tab and pull it out as a separate window. All right, and here I go. I'm going to start the timer. Ready, and question 1, fill in the blank. Some bat species, especially those that feed on insects, rely on what to locate objects?
Echolocation.
Echolocation.
All right. Oh, I misspelled it again. And I can't go on until I get it right. Okay. Next one. 2, over 40 bat species are found in the United States and Canada. The majority of these species eat what?
Insects.
Insects.
Okay.
30 seconds is
That
quick.
time already.
I know it. All right. So number of bats that survived again was 2. All right. So one edit I think already to this, or adjustment I would make for my learners, is to increase the time probably to a minute, at least 45 seconds. But we'll get through, we'll go on to year 3, and the questions will get harder. Let's try some of those.
As
So-
you're switching, Mark, if these are in breakout rooms, would they be going through multiple years before they ever come back to the whole group?
That's
Like they would
correct.
spend 10 minutes or whatever going. Okay.
Yes, they would do year 1, 2, and 3, and then we would all reconvene and share results. And so while we're on that topic, if you do this activity and you're anticipating a sizable online audience, what would be wise to do is first get a good estimate for how many participants you have, maybe make it, participation by registration, like where you have to register to participate, and then get predetermine who your breakout room leaders will be, and then do this activity with them in advance so they can then lead it in the breakout rooms. I think that would be the way to go. All right, so let's try.
Mark, can I interrupt you for just a
Yep,
second?
please do.
In your instructions, it says, don't forget to click on the timer and give your group 30 seconds to answer each question. So you're wanting 30 seconds for all 7 questions.
Suddenly the activity makes so much more sense to me. Oh, yeah. Okay. I like that a whole lot better. Let's try that. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Brenda. Okay.
Go, Brenda.
Oh, hold on. So, by the way, Ashlyn developed this, and this is my first time to conduct it, but Ashlyn, who is a Project Wild coordinator in Kansas, who many of you know, she spent a lot of time in recent weeks developing this activity. I can't wait to talk to her about it and tell her about how it doesn't work when you try it that way.
Well, so the reason to have 2 screens open at the same time is just your timer. So if you couldn't coordinate, you could just have your flippity screen and someone using a, counting or having a timer,
Yes, right.
Okay.
And you can have, as the instructions say, you can have a designated person to record, to monitor the time. Like in our case, that's officially Lori, but it's really obvious in our case since I have the shared screen going. And they can just be watching the time. And you can also have a person designated to be looking at the Google slide in a separate little window, and then they record the results, and everyone else can be just looking at the shared screen. They don't need to have any separate window open.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of options there. All right. So simulation for year 3. Okay, so I'm going to move this over. All right. Now I'm going to open question 1, and then I'm going to start the timer. Question 1, fill in the blanks. Complete at least one of the 2-word blanks, inserting a space between the 2 words to answer correctly. White nose syndrome causes multiple issues for bats who contract the disease. Physical damage to wings.
No.
And what else?
Starvation.
Starvation.
Okay. Anything else? How about?
Oh, dehydration. I was muted.
That's spelled wrong.
Oh,
And dehydration is already listed in the question.
oh, sure enough. So it's something else. That's a hard one. Okay. So
A white nose.
oh, okay. Let's. We're not supposed to be able to try. This is, but. Okay. Well, that didn't unlock it for us. So we're going to move on, and we will have time to come back to that and see what the right answer was. Okay. And actually, sometimes there's a light bulb that gives us a clue, but not in this case. All right. Question 2. Oh, here we go. 30 seconds. True or false? Little brown bats are very common in the northern United States and Canada, but are scarce in the southern United States and absent in the southern Great Plains. They can also be found in high elevation forest in Mexico. True or
True.
false?
True.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to go to question 3 and reset the timer. I'm going to try to reset the timer.
Yeah, it's so much easier resetting the timer. This is nice.
I'm having trouble resetting the timer. Oh, there we go. I don't know how I did it. Whew. Okay. The smallest bat species, Kitty's hognose bat, has a wingspan of 6 inches and weighs less than what?
Penny.
The
A
largest
penny.
Okay. The largest bat species, flying fox, has a wingspan of 6 feet and weighs over 3 pounds. All right. So we've got 2 out of 3 answered correctly. Number 4, and reset the time. Okay, that's it. I had to click out of the timer box and then click into it. All right. All right. So number 4 is, it is estimated that bats save the U.S. agricultural industry over how many $1 billion each year by eating insects that would otherwise destroy crops? Oh, that is a hard one. Any
Is it
guesses?
6? I can't remember what it said in that description.
Let's try. That didn't do it. Let's try 10.
Write S-I-N.
Nope. Okay, so that's another one we got incorrect. Okay, moving on. So number 5, the major cause of death for bats with white nose syndrome is starvation. Bats infected with white nose syndrome awaken more frequently during what? This causes them to use their
Hibernation.
precious fat reserves.
Hibernation.
The scarcity of insects in wintertime prevents the bats from replenishing their energy. And yes, I heard several people say hibernation. All right. So let's try to make this a little more interactive. I'm going to see if I can share this link in the chat and see if one of you can access it and do it. Let's give that a try. Hold on. Okay. If y'all want to try to open the chat to the Flippity and see if you can open it up on your screen, can anybody?
Yes, it's opening for me.
You're on mute.
Okay, so Brenda, I'm going to see if you want to do this. Would you like to click on number 6 and read it? Are you able to access that little
Yep.
6?
I'm ready.
Okay, so go ahead and click on it. Oh, wait a minute. We're going to need to see your screen. So didn't think of that. So I'm making you a co-host. And can you share your screen or share that window?
Number 6. Ready? Can you see it?
I can't see it yet.
I think we're still, mine says you're still viewing the Association of Fish and Wildlife screen.
Let me see what I can do here just a second. Okay, now try again, Brenda, to share your screen. Okay, we got it. And thank you, Brenda, for being such a good sport. You weren't expecting that, I'm sure. All right, so go ahead and click on 6, and I'm going to start the timer. I'll tell you when to stop. Go ahead.
Fill in the blanks. Complete both blanks to answer correctly. Put a space between the 2 numbers in your answer. Some researchers have recorded blank to blank %, Mortality of bats, mostly little brown bats, at winter roost hibernacula in the northeast United States.
90 to 100.
90, 100.
Okay, now press the key and time is up, but we got the answer in time. And did it unlock?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So would you like to go on to the next question?
Got me hooked. I can get back there. Number 7. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
How high off the ground do little brown bats forage when they emerge at late dusk? Usually foraging low over water, among trees, around lawns, and in other open areas. How far off the ground?
12 feet, maybe? 10 feet?
Okay, say 10.
10 feet.
Well, see?
Okay, and time is up.
Hmm.
So we'll be able to come back and see the correct answer later, but we can move on to the next question.
Number 8.
All right, go ahead.
Fill in the blanks. Complete both blanks, inserting a space between the two words to answer correctly. At this time, some bat species affected by white nose syndrome, such as blank bats, are showing a modest population rebound, and much research is focused on finding a way to save local bat species.
Little brown.
And is that it?
Well, it doesn't seem to be the answer. And time is up. All right. So, Brenda, I'm going to stop your share. And I'm going to reshare my screen. Thank you. All right. And so on my Flippity, I had it open on my screen too. And so I put in the same answers. And these are the results you can see on the right that we had 4 out of 8 survive. So there's 8 bats in every population. We had 4 survive and 4 not survive in year 3. Okay, and so then we can close the breakout room. Everybody comes back. Person from group 1 can present on our results and compare, what did it look like? Well, we changed our methods, right? we might see, for example, in year 1, that we had maybe 8 bats survive. And in year 2, maybe it would have been 6. In year 3, it was 4. And then we can record that here. So little bats that survived, and this is just a guess at what we might have gotten.
Mark, do they have more than one chance to put it? We put in more than one answer, but is there a number of times they can put in an answer before it doesn't let them keep trying?
No, I think they can do it as often as they want. At least that's been my experience. They can keep trying, but they'll run out.
So like if you answered really fast, you could put 3 or 4 answers in before your 30 seconds were up.
Right. Okay. Right. But at some point there's going to be a time limit, whether, the 30 seconds runs out or, they are only finished with maybe 6 questions and the activity leader has said it's time to come back to end the breakout room. Or maybe the activity leader says, okay, if you haven't already, go on to year 2.
So we said that, like in breakout rooms, you could say, if you haven't already, move on to year 2, or
Right.
like you get to choose how to progress it.
Right. And I
Okay.
don't think the write-up of this activity specifies that. So there's a lot of, decision making for the activity leader on that. Although I do need to read that more closely, but I don't think it does. Yeah. Okay. And Morgan.
Oh, my 10-year-old pointed this out, but she's why aren't we reading the question and then starting the timer? Because it takes like 15 seconds just to read out the question. And so with
Right.
I think
That's a good question.
A full 30 seconds to think of an answer would help.
Right. I think that's a great idea, and that you all should do that. I could see, like, with some audiences, let's say, for example, professional wildlife educators, you might want to give them less time and require them to read the question. But for a lot of audiences, yeah, good idea. And that might be another thing for me to watch for when I go back and read the instructions again, the detailed directions. How is that worded? Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
I feel like you should just do one timer for all the questions in that year. Like you should do a 5-minute timer or something. Because otherwise there's somebody trying to reset the timer and everything like that. And
yeah.
Like 8 questions, 30 seconds is really like 4 minutes, but give them 5 minutes to answer.
Maybe I'll try that next week when I do this, is try it both ways and see how it works. Like give everybody a start and end time in a breakout room. It might be challenging for the activity leader, but yeah, maybe that would work. Okay. All right. Before we move on and look at the answers, any other comments on that format of the flippity, the questions? Okay. All right. So we want to make sure to allow time to look at the flippity. That is, when I say the flippity, I mean the data that has been put into this flippity app through the use of Google Documents that are linked to it. So let me see where I can find that. Okay, so I'm going past each of these group 4. There's group 4 slides. So, okay. All right, each group now would then share the data. So we would compare how each group did, the differences between years. The second item here is that we would look for trends with each of the groups, little brown bat populations, after white nose syndrome was introduced. All right, so, an example, well, bat populations tended to decrease. And how might the simulation be different or similar to how populations survive in nature? So in other words, how is this simulation like what really happens, and how is it not like what really happens? Any thoughts?
No, it doesn't take into account reproduction.
Or intervention by a wildlife agency or a group that, closes a cave so that they're not interacting as much, or starts cleaning gear, or something like that. Oh, I guess it doesn't take into account that some species are not impacted by white nose syndrome and others are heavily impacted by white nose syndrome. It's just being generic decrease across all of them, the harder it gets.
You're muted.
Sorry. I'm on question 4 here. What roles do little brown bats play in an ecosystem, and how would the decreasing bat population affect the environment?
More mosquitoes, more disease.
Any others?
They eat like the crop and pests, so there might be less food.
Okay, more damage to crops, perhaps less food for people. and maybe that might
Make
also
food.
affect how much pesticide we use.
And make
Crops.
food more expensive.
Okay. All right. So what I need to do now is go back and look at the other questions in the flippity that we did not see. And to do that, I'm going to go back to this page and I'm going to, let me make sure I'm sharing the proper page here.
Mark, this is a non confident user of Google question. The page that you're showing right there, that you're scrolling down, what is that page?
Yeah, so this is from the new Google Project Wild Google site, or the Project Wild. It's known as the Wild Learning Lab website, and this is the page on that website, which happens to be a Google site. This is the page on that Google site for Bat Blitz, and in this page, each of these tools is linked in, and you can pull them out. And so one of the things that's linked in are the flippity data. That is the data that is used to populate the flippity quiz. It's actually known as a flippity scavenger hunt, but that's what they call it. But we used it as a quiz. And so now I'm going to pop out this Google Doc with this little icon here, which is just a spreadsheet, and we can look at the other answers. And the hints I never saw the hints. I need to figure out how to make the hints visible. So this was year one. What are the only mammals capable of flights? Bats. True or false? Bats specialize in eating insects. True. What is being active at night called? Nocturnal. One question we didn't get to, the bat mammalian order Chiroptera means blank wing. Okay, so it means hand wing. That alludes to the unique thin membrane of skin between the bat's elongated hands and bones, etc. Okay, so this flippity, let me go back and actually I can just do it from here, but I'm going to copy the URL at the top and I'm going to share that to you so you have access to that, and I'll put that in the chat. Now, once you get access to this website, you'll have all of this. And actually, I wasn't planning on, I was going to unpublish the website, even though I published it earlier today. I was going to unpublish it and work on it some more before it's published. But if anyone wants early access to it, let me know, and I think I can share it to you. But there's only 2 activities that are really finished, and that's Bat Blitz and limiting factors, which we're going to do next week. But you now have the link to the flippity. You have the link to the Google slide presentation, and you have the link to the Google Doc that we started with that has the detailed instructions. So if you wanted to start with this online version of Bat Blitz before the website is published, you have those 3 sets of tools, which is really what the website does. It just links them all together. Was anyone able to open this flippity screen that I have in the shared screen? Okay, so at the bottom of that flippity, the Google sheet, which is a spreadsheet, the Google sheet titled Bat Blitz Little Brown Bat Survival Simulation Year 1, there's 3 tabs at the bottom, okay? And one of them is, the second tab I'm looking at now, it just gives more of the settings that are done, like what the prompts are, and whether it's case sensitive, etc. And then this third link is a reminder that before you launch this flippity, you can publish it. And let's see, I I need to talk to Ashlyn more about that, but I think that allows, if you're having trouble with people access, like if you make a copy of the Flippity, that's it. If you make a copy of this Google Doc to share with others, and then you use it in a Flippity, you have to republish the Flippity. That's confusing if you haven't done it, and it's confusing for me having only done it once. But it's another thing that will take some practice, that you use this URL to direct your users to the Flippity. But if you're using a Google Doc, a version of this Google Doc that you have altered, you know, if you change the questions, for example, you need to republish it and republish the Flippity. And it will rename the URL of the Flippity. It'll be a new Flippity essentially, and you need to publish that Flippity. There's a publish button that will allow you to share it.